Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. Hey! Guys, welcome to the show that's for you and it's about you. Those of you who work so hard for your money and you want your money to start working harder for you now. You want that freedom, that cash flow, that prosperity today. You don't want to wait 30 or 40 years from now, right? But you want it now so you can live that life that you love, doing what you love with whomever you want. On top of that, guys, but it's so much more than just being rich, right? It's about creating a life of purpose, a life of meaning, and creating that ripple effect through the lives of others. Because as you're blessed financially, you can help bless lives too. And so, guys, I appreciate you being on, allowing me to create that ripple effect through you. I appreciate you tuning in. I love the fact that you guys are like asking questions. I've had several of you guys reach out to my website, moneyripples.com. Definitely feel free to check that out too. And hey, I appreciate you guys also subscribing to our YouTube channel, that Money Ripples with Chris Miles page. Lots of fun little videos we put up on there. So be sure to check that out. So today, guys, I brought on a repeat guest. I realized that I've had some really good guests that maybe get buried down a little bit in the episodes, and you may not be able to see it. And so, but we're going to take a slightly different spin or more updated spin on this for those of you that have been binging like crazy. If you guys remember, if you've been listening long enough, Kyle Stanley, I had him on before talking about Airbnb and short-term rentals and things like that. Well, he is an Airbnb operator actually out of Fresno, California. Now, when he learned he could do Airbnb's homes, he didn't actually have to own, and that was the big focus of the last episode. He realized he could scale his business huge and quick. In under 18 months, he went from having one listing on Airbnb now to over 25, netting over $20,000 a month. So now he teaches people how to replicate the same exact path he took for getting success in Airbnb. He also has been doing everything from flipping, wholesaling, creative financing, you name it. And he's even got his own podcast I invite you guys to follow called The Fearless Investor. So be sure to check that out, guys. So Kyle, welcome back to our show.
All right. Hey, Chris, excited to be back on, and yeah, a little different, a little updated than last time for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So give them a little bit of that background. I mean, we talked about last time, but let's put a little bit of a segue from the last episode till now. So you were teaching people not just to go buy rentals, right? But actually how to lease properties and then sublease them out as short-term rentals. Tell them a little bit about that and the benefits of that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when I was last on your show, I feel like I was kind of really the story was like just developing. And now it's like, holy cow, things have just completely taken off and we're helping so many people too. And that's what's really exciting. But yeah, the concept is basically you can get into Airbnb in three different ways. Number one is the typical way that people think of. It's really the old school way of thinking about it. Own your own house or rent out a room or live in a house. And then, once you leave it and go buy that dream house, then you Airbnb it out.
It's like a burst strategy almost, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to get into Airbnb, but you can't build a six-figure business doing it like that unless you have millions of dollars set aside to go buy houses. And so, there's this desire right now in the share economy for people to want to get into things like Airbnb, but don't know how to get started. And the easiest way, that number two way, is by doing this fancy thing called rental arbitrage, which is basically you get really good at convincing landlords how to rent out their property and then sublease it on Airbnb with their permission. You reduce much of the risk because now you're just tied to a lease rather than a deed of a home, and you're cash flowing upwards of $1,000, $1,500. Some people I know are even cash flowing over $5,000 a month with properties that they don't own. And this is a phenomenal way of getting started. But since you and I last talked, this other way has really creeped up on me and it came very organically. And now this is really what I'm teaching people is you start to build this resume on Airbnb, become a super host, and you're getting really good at this. And people now come to you and say, hey, what if you manage my property? I got a lease that's coming up. How about we throw this thing on Airbnb? The owner pays for all the expenses. So you now went from owning, which you have all the risk, arbitraging, which you have less risk, to now managing, you have zero risk. And you're cash flowing with no money in the deal. It's an infinite return on your money. And I think that is a great way to look at it, especially here with Money Ripples, man. Chris Miles, talking about the return on investment. I love infinite returns on my investment. And that's exactly how we've been able to go, like you said, from 0 to 25 in under 18 months. And the majority of those came actually in June of 2020 when everyone else was freaking out about COVID. We were growing like crazy. So it's been very exciting ever since.
Yeah, I mean, let's bring up COVID because I know that's got to be on people's minds because with people traveling less, it's shifted. It's not that people aren't doing short-term rentals, right? It's probably what you've discovered, but it's shifted a little bit on how they're doing these short-term rentals.
Yeah, I mean, the how is definitely different in regards to the guest and the way of which hosts are doing it, because now we have guests that are coming in and every little issue that could create a hesitation when it comes to their safety is seen. I mean, we literally had someone call the other night. It was like, there's like a small streak on the fridge. Like, is this place clean? And it's like, okay, if this wasn't COVID, you probably wouldn't even said anything.
Yeah.
So cleaning definitely becomes more of a thing for us. And I would say though, that the big thing that I just want to help people with today is a mindset of Airbnb is not going away. This has actually been for us, Chris. It was like 2 months, March and April, bled in a little bit into May as well, where we were worried and we saw a little bit of a decrease. Some people across the nation will talk about how they saw like almost all their Airbnb income go away. I saw a little bit, wasn't a huge change, but yeah, it was really just a 2-month impact. And after that, things were back to normal. So Airbnb has survived a pandemic. And that is exciting for us.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed I use Airbnb all the time, right? And I've noticed my own perception. I actually hate the extra cleaning. Like, it's nice that they clean. I want the clean, but when they say, hey, there's no food left, you're gonna have to buy all your own food from scratch because you can't use anybody else's stuff, even if it's salt and pepper. I'm like, come on, like we're going to the extreme here.
There's some extremes, but unfortunately, that's the world we're living in today. We got to adjust to the people that we're serving, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this is fascinating because like you already said, I mean, being able to arbitrage rent, because I know a lot of risks that people talk about when they're trying to rent their properties will say, yeah, but if I own it, what if it doesn't work? I've got a mortgage to pay and everything else. Now, you don't necessarily have like a big, huge mortgage balance on your books, right? But you do have a monthly outgoing. Like, you got to have that monthly rent going on, right? I mean, tell us, like, what have been some of the key tricks for you to kind of, even though people have gone out of business in Airbnb or had a really lean times, what was your secret? Like, what allowed you to keep going strong?
Yeah, it really was that transition from owning and arbitraging to co-hosting. That's the Airbnb term for being a property manager is co-hosting. And so just to give you some numbers, I mean, right before COVID, we had roughly 9 properties, I want to say. Then after COVID, it was June until November, we went from 9 to 25. And 13 of those 16 additions were other people's properties that we were hosting for. So to me, like, just like what you said, if you have overhead expenses, the more overhead expenses you have, the more you're worried about something that might happen. So I want to reduce all of my overhead expenses. I want to put all the risk on other people, but at the same time, benefit those people. Like, I'm not using other people and putting them in a bad situation. They're stoked. Like, these owners are making, before me, $200 and $300 a month. And then they hear about Airbnb and they hear about this guy, Kyle, and they're calling me up and they're like, what do you mean I can make $800 to $1,000 a month, even after paying you? Like, that just sounds too good to be true. And when I show them that, and then they see like it is possible, then they're excited too. So it's this great win-win all the way around. But the big thing for me that allowed me to be able to grow was making money a non-issue, using the ability to be able to raise money from other people or to use other people's properties that were going to take all the financial responsibility themselves. And so that's how we have just grown tremendously. Now we're at 30 units in Fresno, California, and we are also starting up in Phoenix, Arizona. We have 3 over there and looking to grow to about 15 to 20 by the end of the year over there.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, if somebody was to do this, like, or they were to hire you or they were wanting to do this themselves, like, how would they go about doing that? Like, that's just, I agree with you. Like, you want to take as little risk as you can, and having like an additional revenue income stream coming in, I think is brilliant, right?
Yeah.
So what are some first steps they can do?
Well, the first step would be evaluating your goals. Like, I talk to a lot of people, and especially Chris, I know a lot of your audience is people that maybe you do have the money. Maybe you are ready to spend enough money to go buy 10 houses or a 4-plex and a 3-plex or something like that. And that's great. if you're able to do that and you want to keep it passive, hire someone like me. I only work in markets that I'm in, which is Fresno and Phoenix. If you're not in those areas, that's okay. There's other people out there. You can still connect with me. I have tons of connections to people that are managing for owners nationwide. Just DM me on Instagram at Fearless Kyle and I'll connect you with someone. But the majority of people that I'm helping are the ones that are wanting to start this as a business. They're working a job that is fulfilling to them financially, but it's not fulfilling to them from a 9 to 5 day to day. They want to have a little bit more freedom. And for that reason, in order to move fast in this business, you have to go the route of using other people's properties. And to me, the best way to do that, getting started off right now, is just understanding and learning how to evaluate deals. That is the easiest way to do this. Just like if you're going to get into any part of real estate, you have to understand the deal so that when you go to a landlord or you go to someone that you're trying to raise money with, you can show them, here's what I'm going to make. And here's why this is going to be your best situation is to rent it out to me. And I help people to evaluate those deals, both to my students, but also you can download a very free and awesome Airbnb profit calculator on my website. It's fearlesskyle.com. And that'll be that resource that you need to see like, hey, do I have an Airbnb deal or do I have an Airbnb dud? And to me, that matched with a resource that we have called AirDNA. It's available to anyone. There's a free version and then there's a paid version. I suggest getting the paid version for at least 1 month. It'll teach you, it's kind of like the MLS of Airbnb. If you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in this area, you can see what did that 3-bedroom, 2-bath gross over the last year, and then you can compare it to yours. And basically it'll help you to understand what is possible to make on this Airbnb. So I use that matched with my profit calculator. Learning how to evaluate deals, I think, is the very first step that you have to get really good at. And, I would say just one other thing is start in your own backyard. If you can't start in your own backyard, at least find someone that you trust that's in a different backyard that can partner with you. Because a lot of people think like, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do this in, call it Miami, Florida, and they live in California and they don't know A from Z when it comes to this business. And to think that you can manage this business from afar right when you're getting started off is just very unrealistic to me.
Yeah. And I think especially with big markets like that, where you've got Miami, right? Or like you got anywhere in California or the West Coast for that matter, where prices are so huge, you don't want to be buying that property. Because every time I hear somebody buying the property, it's so hard for them to even make a profit, like a real significant profit that they can make somewhere else. So of course they're going to look in other markets, but for cheaper homes that they can cash flow more. But here they can actually be in their own backyard. They can actually be doing this. They can even, if they're trying to qualify as a real estate professional, this could help them qualify as a real estate professional. Even if they have another job on the side, this could actually be the very activity that gives them all the tax breaks they need and give them all the cash flow they need while it's still right there.
Yeah. Well, I was just watching a video from Chris Crone the other day, and he was talking about the median in the US right now is almost $100,000 more than it was last year. Think about that for a second. Basically, we went from almost like $250,000 was the median in the US, and now it's like 340, 350. That's crazy to think about. And so last year, when investors would come to me and be like, hey, I want to buy a house and I want you to manage it on Airbnb, I'm like, yeah, all day long. They're going to have a mortgage of $1,400 probably at the most. I'm going to make my 1,000. They're going to make their 1,000. But now you go and buy a house, and that same house is being outbid by $20,000, $30,000, $40,000.
Yeah.
And now that mortgage, instead of being $1,400, is $1,800, $1,900, $2,000. And now suddenly I'm making 1,000 and they're only making 500. And so it's really tough to go out there right now on the MLS unless you back it up. It's tough to go on the MLS, but if you have a way of getting off market deals, by all means, go do it. But yeah, to me right now, doing it with other people's properties is one of the only ways to go if you want to move fast.
I agree. It's much easier to scale that with way less out of pocket, because it's like what, 10,000 plus, right? Just to get an Airbnb set up versus putting especially if you're in California, maybe a $100,000, $200,000 down payment. You could be buying 10 times the properties or renting out or subleasing 10 times the amount of properties.
If you have $100,000 right now, you can go buy one house and set up one Airbnb.
Yeah.
If you're going to own. If you're going to go arbitrage, you can do that with 8, 9, 10 homes.
Yeah.
That is the difference between $1,000 a month from something that you own to $1,000 a month times 10 for something that you don't own. That's powerful. That's really powerful.
That's so huge. And speaking of which, I mean, for those people that are kind of busy, whether they're professionals, whether they're busy entrepreneurs, whatever they might be, and they don't have a lot of hours, is this still possible? Is this something they can still scale and do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually just hosted a free webinar recently, and that was one of the things. There's three things that people are concerned of when it comes to starting, not just a new Airbnb business, but a new business in general. Do I have the time? Do I have the knowledge? Do I have the money? And to me, it's never been easier to get knowledge in our day and age. I have a course. We have this new thing called Clubhouse, where literally there's free information we can give away all day long. If you haven't joined Clubhouse, you need to. I also have a free Facebook group. All you have to do is search Airbnb Masterminds. I'm answering questions on that all day long. Like, you can decide, how do I want to get educated? First of all, do I want to take the free and longer route and get on some of YouTube videos, or do I want to get something like Kyle's course and get streamlined and get my first property in a month and just start moving right away? But then there's the time thing and the money thing. We already talked about money. Okay. You don't need to have any money, or you don't need to have much. But the time thing to me, Chris, is like 2 to 3 hours a week. That to me is all that you really need. You start growing, you got to integrate some systems. But if you do it the right way, if you follow like what I teach in my course, you can start having those systems right from the get-go to make sure you're keeping your time very small. I have a guy right now who lives in Pennsylvania. He's one of my students. He works basically 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., has the weekends, but even that's tough because he's got a wife and they're brand new, newlyweds. And, you know, she's wanting his time too. And in 3 weeks, he got his first property. He's already cash flowing over $1,200 a month, an apartment that he doesn't own. And he said it only took him a few hours a week to get that first one. And then, you know, you have those right systems set up, it can basically manage itself. And so if you hear people out there saying like, oh, Airbnb is great, but it takes too much time, they're just doing it wrong. They're doing it the wrong way. If you have the right systems, if you have the right people on your team, this can be a very simple process. I have 30 properties. I put 1 hour a week into managing my own properties. And the 1 hour I put into is talking with my team. I don't talk to guests. I don't do any of the cleaning. I don't touch any of that stuff. That's all my team. So you can do that too.
Awesome. Dude, this got me stoked. Like, I want to get in this business now, you know, like, especially if it doesn't require a lot of time, or you can partner up with people. I think that's fascinating. So I love it, man. So I know you gave us a link to put in the show notes here so that people can actually register for that course, right? And they can get involved there and learn more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to share a little bit about the course?
Yeah. Go ahead and share just for a minute or two. Yeah.
It's called the Airbnb Kickstart course. Basically, guys, what this is, I put all of the things that I've developed in Airbnb from not just the last couple of years, but the 5 years I've been in it, from when I was just doing it as a room in my home. I put all this together to streamline it, to show you how to go from $0 to $20,000 a month net in under 18 months, just like what I did. It's basically, you can get through this whole thing in like 8 hours, but each module actually teaches you what to do step by step. All you have to do is follow the steps. It's teaching you how to master, automate, and scale this business so that you can get to 6 figures as well. Free templates, free advice on obviously all the ways in which you communicate with guests, hire teammates, talk to landlords. That's the big thing. Like, how do you have a conversation with a landlord? Literally have recorded calls that you can listen to of what meetings I've had with landlords. So honestly, anything you can think of that has a question with that, you're going to get it answered in the course. But then I take it one step further and I include group coaching in there as well, so that you can answer your question, ask any questions you want at any time that you feel like you need to get answered that are not in the course. So I love seeing people successful. I want to see everyone successful that joins my groups. And that's why I do that group coaching aspect as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we'll be sure to share that. That's just a huge resource right there. And I tell people on the show all the time, like, you might think education is expensive, but man, ignorance costs you way, way more. Ignorance is a ripoff.
Let me tell you this. I did the numbers, Chris. So for 3 years, I was doing Airbnb as a room out of my house. You know, I was doing it the old way. And the day that I found out about the idea of using other people's properties, you know, that light bulb went off and boom, I had my first property in a month and I was making $1,000 a month right away with a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in Fresno. I did the numbers for 3 years. Okay. 3 years of not knowing that the property that I owned could have been making me at least $1,000 per month, probably more. I realized I was leaving about $60,000 to $75,000 on the table.
Yeah.
Then I realized if I had gotten the itch right away on day one, not day one of year 4, I would not have been at one property. I would have been at 3, 5, 10, 20 properties. We're talking millions of dollars left on the table because of ignorance.
It's not just the cost of doing it wrong. It's the cost of opportunity cost, right? Of not doing it right, that you didn't make that money.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just think you got to look at the ROI on your time and your decisions. And you're going to have a lot of time that you're putting into if you're trying to do this on your own. I don't care what business you're getting into. Get a course, get a mentor, get a group that's going to help you. I don't care what it is. Just get help. Don't do it on your own.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we'll be sure to put that in the show notes. Everybody, it's not just about listening to this show, right? It's about what you can actually do with the information to make a change in your life, guys. And that's the ripple effect we're here to create. Otherwise, we wouldn't waste our breath trying to help you here. So definitely check that out if this really pings with you. Like, check it out. Be a part of this because, man, right now is the best time you've got. You can't control tomorrow. You can't fix yesterday, but you can definitely make a decision now to change your life. So, Kyle, again, appreciate you being on as always. Fantastic information.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
You bet. Everybody else, I hope you're making a wonderful and prosperous week, and we'll see you later.
Visit us online at moneyripples.com.